Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of June the 7th will come to order. It will be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then applicant and/or their representative. Then the public hearing will open, and we will hear from those in favor and/or those in opposition to the request. When you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record. Before closing the public hearing, both staff, applicant, and/or their representative will be provided an opportunity to respond and provide additional information and answer all questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed. We will hear closing remarks and alternatives from staff. With that, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is a short-term rental, STR 0073.
Good evening. Okay. Good evening. This is a short-term rental located at 1932 North Carnley Street. Here's an area map of the location there at the corner of Carnley. Across the street of Skyline, as you know, is the junior high school. And this is a new subdivision. This is Skyline East, Section 2, Phase 1. Do you have any questions for staff?
See any questions from the commissioners? Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll ask if the applicant or their representative is here and would like to make any requests or comments to commission.
I'm just here. My name is Mark Weiser. I'm just here to answer any questions you have. We'll be kind of taking care of the property, and we have others, so we have a good idea of demographics, number of people, number of cars for this kind of a house. So if you have any questions, don't really have any.
Could you give us your address for the record?
Sure. It's 223 North Old Highway 51, Stillwater, 74075.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, any questions?
Well, just what kind of controls will you exercise over the occupants while they're in the house?
Well, like any residential rental of any kind, there's not, we're not there when they're there. So, I guess I'm not sure what kind of controls.
Well, what understanding do you establish with the prospective occupants so they understand, okay, these are the rules of engagement here?
I see. Well, they do have, for instance, their, we outline, for instance, no parties. Occasionally we'll have people that say, well, we want to have a get together because we're having a family reunion, and then we approve that individually, or the owners do. We'll kind of serve as a local representative so that there's someone local that can that they can call. They in advance get information about where they should park, not just the rules or the laws there, but where to try to keep them out of the way. It is right on a corner. Right now, this property doesn't have anybody across the street in any direction, but of course that will change. So as the situation changes, we'll change those. They receive these things electronically, and then the day that a group arrives, they get another reminder, sort of the bullet list of the bigger things, if you will, kind of the things that'll inconvenience other people, basically.
Has the house been built?
Yeah, the house was built. I think it was just released to the owners maybe 2 months ago, and they stayed in it. Their intent was they were just using it. They have a daughter who's an OSU athlete, so they were coming up here. They plan on being up here at least monthly, but as opposed to having it empty, 3.5 weeks a month, they wanted to explore other ways to partially pay for it.
So then you're the third party that administers this.
That's correct.
For them.
That's right.
It's not a Airbnb?
Well, it is an Airbnb,
okay.
but when the applicant actually lives in Massachusetts, so there, somebody needs to interact with if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, cleaning, because there'd be different groups coming in, and so we sort of coordinate all those services.
Okay.
And then also we're the direct contact for any guest, because if they need something now, it's hard to do that from Massachusetts.
So it is an Airbnb, so
That's
that
correct.
kind of defines the market that they're seeking.
That's right, that's right. But within Airbnb, you can set your own rules and guidelines, you know, that for every property based on just the area around there and the neighbors and so on.
What's the max occupancy that's set on it? Do you know?
Honestly, don't remember. That house, that typical group, I believe the max occupancy is probably set at either 7 or 8 on that house. The typical for that house and at the price level that they intend to have it, it will likely be an immediate or extended family of 3 to 5 people with an average of about 2.5 cars. And it'll be probably occupied about 20 out of 30 days is our estimate.
And you did mention that you have other properties.
Correct.
How long have you been managing, and maybe give us an idea of how many properties you've been, you currently have, so we kind of have an idea of
Sure.
your kind of area of expertise and kind of your level of anticipating.
Sure.
what
I think
the
we have
things
probably,
might be.
we do more of this than anybody else, but my wife and I have 7 short-term rentals in Stillwater, 2 in Cushing. We coordinate services for 2 others that are permitted in Stillwater as well. So this would be a total of 12. I'm using the term coordinate services. I'm not a broker, so there are a couple things that by Oklahoma Real Estate Commission rules, I'm not allowed to do as a non-broker, but 90% of the things a broker does, you are allowed to do without a broker's license.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Does the neighborhood have an HOA? Do you know?
It does not.
Okay.
If you have any questions about this sort of thing in general, like I said, we've been doing, and I'm sorry, I think the first one was about 4 years ago. So before the permitting process started, we were doing this, and I think we have permit 4 or something like that on one of our properties. So we were in that first batch that came in.
You've been doing this long enough to kind of anticipate what the market is in Stillwater and
Oh yeah, I actually
kind of troubleshoot things that may happen.
Yeah, we in preparation for this, we actually looked up other places that we have and others that we have access to their records to try to be able to answer, you know, the questions about how many cars, how many people, because that's what the complaint was about and really the average occupancy of that house, given that some of the time it'll be single individuals and some of the time it'll be empty, it will be less than if someone was living there full time.
Appreciate that explanation.
You know, if it's Airbnb or VRBO or whatever it is, I think they typically have quiet hours defined, right?
They do not.
They do
No,
not.
the individual, you know, and there's not, if there was an HO, so we do have a property in an HOA, and so in addition to all the standard, we bullet list those things that the HOA also enforces. But other than that, it's a residential rental, only the average rental is under 30 days.
Okay. Do you know if they will have sort of a quiet hours, like, you know, no loud music from 10 to 6 or something?
Well, I see. Well, we in our guidelines, we actually tell them no parties, and we warn them that there are neighbors around. This particular property, because it's a corner, there's a neighbor adjacent, but there aren't even windows on that side of the house. So it's really this property worked out very well for a short-term rental. And out the backyard, it's not a real large backyard, but a sizable backyard. And then that person has a 6-foot privacy fence before their yard and then the house. So it's actually well separated from that adjacent house even. It's actually in a much better situation than I think most of our others, frankly.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone else present tonight that wants to speak in favor of this item. Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition of this item. That would be great. Thank you.
So Mr. Farland had emailed us. His address is 1917 North Skyline Street. Emailed us, and he was not able to attend tonight and would like me to present his comments. I'll just read it. New homes and families was what we were told this would be. Now, people passing through from God knows where for how long is being asked. As a grandparent with grandchildren in the school system, non-resident strangers and yet more traffic are being applied for. The original housing project did a limited traffic study, which should have included bikes, motorcycles, and foot traffic. This adds to that mix. I respectfully request a closer look by the affected community.
Thank you. All right. Given the complaint or the opposition letter that we received, my thoughts on this are the questions that were answered previously by the applicant's representative. In my mind, to answer these questions, and it sounds to me like that the owners, as well as any of the visitors, were probably going to generate a similar amount of traffic to the owners would there. And sounds like there's also a lot of history that you have, that the management group will have, and be able to address issues that might come up. I understand Mr. McFarland's concerns in here, but I feel like the answers we've heard this evening fit in with a residential neighborhood usage. I'll just ask if any other commissioners have any comments or thoughts.
Well, I would agree with that. Yeah, seems reasonable.
Okay. All right. Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing and ask the commissioners if anyone's entertaining a motion or if anyone has any more discussion.
Seeing no further discussion and without objection, I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve as the item. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the item. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the meeting summaries for review and possible action. We have summaries from January 11th, February 15th, May 3rd, and May 17th. Shall we take them one by one?
If no one has any changes, then you can take them with all one motion if you like.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
If there are no objections, then I move to approve all of the minutes on item 3.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from all 4 meetings as submitted. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. All of those are accepted. The next item on the agenda is presentation by special counsel of the City Attorney's Office regarding state statutes, the Stillwater Code of Ordinances, the zoning code, and cases of interest on planning or zoning matters.
I was doing some research on the First Amendment earlier in the week, and I came across a case from Arizona that actually went, and you all know how excited I get about this stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a picture. This is Pastor Reed, and that's his wife, Ann. And it's kind of interesting because they lived in the booming metropolis of Gilbert, Arizona. And what they basically looked after the Good News Community Church. And what was interesting about the Good News Community Church is that they didn't have a building. And so they utilized elementary schools and other locations to congregate. And so what they would do is, and you could see in the picture that they were holding up a little sign that Good News Presbyterian, and what they would do is they'd take these signs so that their congregants and then also others would know where they were meeting, which seems pretty logical. So they were putting these signs out everywhere throughout town, hopefully not in a terribly annoying way, but just basically to inform people of where they were going to be. And so the town of Gilbert had received a couple of complaints about the signs. And so after doing a review of the sign code, their code officer concluded that the sign code prohibited them from displaying those signs. They call them directional signs. And what was interesting about it is that the sign code did allow signs like for realtors. They allowed them, they allowed political signs. They allowed all sorts of different things. So Pastor Reed went in and tried to talk to the code officer about this to see if they couldn't reach some sort of armistice in these signs. And I guess the code officer took a hardline approach on it, and as luck would have it, this case went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court heard oral argument in 2015, and the court said basically, and the justices at that time, Alito was one of them, and Breyer and Kagan, they all sort of disagreed about how far-reaching their ruling should be. But what they did conclude was that the town of Gilbert's sign code was unconstitutional. And so one of the things that they looked at was, and Alito did make the comment. He said, I really feel like there ought to be, the municipalities ought to have the ability to have reasonable sign regulations. But the problem was that the town of Gilbert's sign code, probably like many others, was content-based. And so when you start regulating the content of signs as opposed to kind of what we refer to time, place, and manner restrictions, then you really have some issues. But I'm on the board of directors for the International Municipal Lawyers Association, and this case was originally, of course, decided by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California, which we here in Oklahoma affectionately refer to as the Ninth Circus, because you never really know what kind of opinion is going to come out of it. But the Ninth Circuit basically was supportive of the town's code. And so when they filed a petition for certiorari with the United States Supreme Court, and it was accepted by the justices, you all of a sudden got the attention of every municipal attorney in the United States, because we were like, whoa. And so Pastor Reed and his wife Ann are responsible for really changing the complexion of the modern day sign code. So anyway, kind of an interesting little case, and I'm fairly certain that wasn't his objective. I think that he just really, wanted to be able to tell people where it went, and next thing you know, they were walking out of the Supreme Court. So anyway, Thank you.
You just never know where something's going to go like that.
Never know.
The next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or the city attorney for discussion and possible action. The only item we have listed is that the next planning commission meeting will be June 14th, so that's next Tuesday. The last item on the agenda is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Without objection, I move to adjourn.
A second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. We stand adjourned.